So I want you to share really with me why it is that Hebrew caught your attention the way it did, because you grew up speaking it, why it caught your attention the way it did, and why you decided to pursue teaching people as a career.
I think it started, I was a professor at the university, but I think it started with a group of pastors that I was teaching. And everybody brought up their own Bible. One brought the Greek Bible, another one brought the English Bible. And I start noticing to a shocking fact that in every page of the English Bibles, I could find between 5 to 10 departures from the accurate word that was in Hebrew. And when I said it to them, they were shocked. They said, how could it be? I said, well, look at it. This is the original. You don't have any doubts about the fact that the Bible is written in Hebrew originally. We'll talk about the Old Testament, but we think the same thing about the New Testament as well. But let's just talk about the Old Testament. Some departures are very innocent. They are minute. No, you would say no big deal departures.
Right.
Fine. But some of the departures were not that small in scope. They are very dramatic in the understanding. If you want, I can give you one example, which is I just discovered it lately. I did not see it before because I normally read it in Hebrew. Sometimes people call pastors and friends and others, Danny, what does it say? And then, before they go and teach in some place, they consult. And I check, but I always have to check the Hebrew because this is the authority. Now, we don't expect everybody to know Hebrew, but yes, we do expect good Christians to use Hebrew if people want to get closer to the original. I'll give you an example. This was very startling to me and in the area almost shocking. The word please is absent from English Bibles. There is no please in the Old Testament translation and in the New Testament as well. But we know it all along that I found the word please about 439 times in the Old Testament and about close to 200 times in the New Testament, Hebrew New Testament. There is the word please, but it's completely absent from any translation, either in Greek or in English. I could not figure out what's going on. So I looked at one of the greatest examples, maybe can demonstrate it better than anything else, is the example of Abraham. God makes big promises to Abraham. Everybody knows that from the beginning of Genesis. You'll become a great nation. You'll inherit the land. Your children will multiply. There'll be many, many, many. And the man is 100 years old, and finally he has a son. And then take it to this chapter in Genesis that God speaks to Abraham and says, in English, now take your son, the only one, the one, this is called the make no mistake principle. He does not want to leave any loophole or any kind of fine print for Abraham to escape what he's asking him to do. So the make no mistake principle, he says to him in Hebrew, not in Hebrew, let's say in English first. In English Bibles, it says, now take your son, and if that's, okay, he has only one anyway, it could have stopped right there. But it says, the only one, well, he has one anyway. And if that's not enough, he says, the one that you love. Look at this. I mean, very detailed, fine print. And if that is not enough, it's a fourfold. And he says, take Isaac. So now take your son, the only one, the one that you love, take Isaac and sacrifice it to me on one of the mountains I will show you. If you look at a statement like that, for a man on that age that finally has a son, and now God wants
God's
to kill
asking
his
him
son.
to sacrifice him, he'd have a heart attack and die.
Yes. Well, you would say, I don't want to say that in relation to God. It may sound as though it is harsh, or even if that was a human to human, I would say heartless. But that's not what the Hebrew says. That's what the English says, because they misunderstood, the translator, or misinterpreted or misconstrued one simple word in Hebrew, and that's the word please. Now, when God says to Abraham what he says, he doesn't say to him, now take your son. That sounds harsh. Now take your son. He says the word na in Hebrew. The word na is not now. The word na in Hebrew, Amy, means please. It's almost like laying a hand on his shoulder in a soothing way and say, please, take your son, the one that you love, in a way telling him, trust me, I know what I'm doing here.
Please do this.
Please do this. A begging for a man, understanding, loving, compassionate, and that compassion is missing if you read it in English. Now take your son. Where is the compassion? Another example for the New Testament. I love the New Testament. I found out amazing Hebraic sources and origins in the New Testament that enrich the life of every Christian to a dramatic extent. Take the word. You know the case of that leader that his daughter dying, and he comes to Yeshua, Jesus, and he asks him, revive my daughter. What does he say then? Now come and fix her, you know? Now come? Where is the please? Is that the way a man that just lost his daughter and wants to revive her speaks to Jesus? Come now. He says in Hebrew, nah, please, I beg you. Now, the word I beseech you, I beg you is translated. But those are very few cases. Most of the cases, the word is na. Well, I wrote it here. I picked it up, and people can find it on their own. But be aware, the Bible is very, very kind and much more polite than what we see when we read it through the Greek translation into the English translation. The Hebrew show the whole heart of compassion and kindness that is missing.
And you know why that's so important, Danny? Especially in Christianity, there is this thought process that really doesn't think things through, where most Christians view the God of the Old Testament as mean and judgmental. But over in the New Testament, now he's full of grace and mercy.
That's right.
He's completely changed.
And I know exactly where it's coming from. That was a very evil trend in Christianity that is called the Gnostic theology. Those started in Alexandria, Egypt. They tried to make a dichotomy. They tried to make a separation between the God of the Old Testament, the God of Israel, supposedly, and the God, Jesus, which is compared, just like you said now. But you know, luckily for every Christian today, that the fathers of the church understood that if they go to this direction, Christianity will never be a valid religion and faith. If you take away the Old Testament, which is the cradle, the foundation of Christianity, and you trash it, you throw it away, you'll come up with a religion without foundation. Mm-hmm. Thanks God that they understood it and they said, no. They stopped the Gnostic trend to dissect between the two gods and make that's here. This is a God of wrath and anger. And even though they've done a good, successful job in this one, Protestant Christianity accepts and embraces Old Testament beautifully. And so are other groups too in Christianity. But the overtone of that harsh God is still heard in almost every church in America. Mm-hmm. Overtone, not in clear, straightforward words, but it still vibrates in the air, that notion, which is completely false. The example I just gave here, the compassionate father is right there. And this is a father. It's not just the God. God is the father. Now think of that. When he says this to Abraham to kill his son, to go and sacrifice his son, this is the father speaking.
If you enjoyed this clip, please feel free to check out the full version in the link located in the description panel below. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. As always, help yourself to the diverse array of teachings located on this YouTube channel or on our website at glc.us.com.